Hey everybody, this is Ted Forbes and welcome back to the Art of Photography. This has been an amazing week. As most of you know, I had an opportunity last week to fly up to Boston and spend several days interviewing one of my favorite photographers, and a person who I believe to be one of the great photographers of our lifetime. And of course I'm talking about Harold Feinstein. And we flew up to Boston, spent several days really doing a complete career retrospective. And you know, this is a guy who's had a 70-year career. He's done some pretty amazing things and an astonishingly consistent body of work that has spanned his whole career. We pulled out a bunch of prints and got to look at things. We looked at some contact sheets, and that was the part that blew me away, because you know, when you look at contact sheets, you expect to be some duds and you know, a couple outtakes and then the one that got picked. You look at Harold's contact sheets, pretty much the whole thing is usable and everything is great. Explores different angles, and anyway, we put prints and contact sheets down, talked about everything, and I believe we got some really, really great footage, and I'm really excited about it. And I want to share a little preview, a little teaser of that today. I spent yesterday putting this together, and I'll talk more about what we're going to do with the whole thing after the clip. But just to set this up and tell you what we're talking about, while I was up there, the news came out last week that Peter Lik had sold a photograph for $6.5 million. And this incited a bit of an argument that I thought was pretty silly, and we had a fun talking about it. You know, between two columnists for The Guardian, and one was saying, you know, photography is a waste of time, and the other was kind of defending it. And people were tweeting asking if I'd do a show on it, and I thought, you know, this would actually be really something cool to ask Harold and get his opinion on. So anyway, that's what we're talking about in this clip, and you'll see me reading the article and we'll get to it. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Harold Feinstein. Peter Lik had sold a photograph this week for $6.5 million. Obviously, we would all like to be Peter Lik. But this started a debate between two columnists. And one, typically, the debate is photography art. And I'll pull the block quotes from this. The first one, and this is from Jonathan Jones for The Guardian, says that he's talking about the image. In the piece, Jones argues that the photos don't deserve a place in galleries next to paintings, and he says it looks stupid when a photograph is framed and backlit and displayed vertically in an exhibition in the way photographs have traditionally been shown. A photograph in a gallery is a flat, soulless, superficial substitute for a painting. Putting up massive prints is a waste of space when the curators could provide iPads and let us scroll through a digital gallery that would be just as easy and beautifully compelling as his expensive prints. Photography is not an art, it's a technology. We have no excuse to ignore the obvious fact in the age of digital cameras when the most beguiling high-definition images and effects are available to millions. My iPad can take panoramic views that are gorgeous to look at. Does that make me an artist? No, it makes my tablet one hell of a device.
Well, I think now of brushes. I mean, there are very fine, beautiful sable brushes which are quite expensive, and they have a beautiful shape and they come to a fine point. And so by simply holding it lightly, you get a very fine line, and as you increase the pressure down, the line becomes wider. Now, what part of the statement of the artist is because of the brush or the artist? Sometimes I think someone who paints a house is creating a better work of art than many artists. The thing is that the house has to be judged by how well it stands up. It keeps the heat in, keeps the snow and rain out. What job does art have? Poof. Encourage fantasies and dreams, as though that were a bad thing to do. And that, of course, is the wonderful thing about art, is that it does incite anger, joy, etc. And so what do you expect of art? What do you want of it? Well, I know that if you're painting for the joy of it, you are already being paid. to some extent. And also not understanding the importance of, quote, failure in life. No matter what we do, all of us are at one time or another going to land on our ass. Cry our hearts out.
Maybe sooner than later.
What?
Maybe sooner than later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, the question is often, and usually, if not always, more important than the answer.
Do you still have questions at your age now?
And how?
Sure.
I mean, I find one of the most important attributes of age that I am experiencing is realizing how much I don't know. And I think, and maybe one of the reasons I believe in reincarnation is that I'll need another life at least to get to know all there is to know,
right,
or even a semblance of it. We live within a miracle and we don't appreciate it, and that's sad.
Yeah. It's almost, when you're talking about the question being more important than the answer, and that has such a large part to do with art, I think too, when you have an answer to your question, you're done with it. You move on. And art is not about moving on, it's about continuing. It's about that eternal quest. I think that's why you have Coney Island that looks different than Metropolis, that looks different than the seashells and the butterflies. I mean, this could be three distinctively different photographers, right? But it's not. It's one person who continued to explore
and enjoy.
Yeah. So that is just a little teaser clip, and as you guys can see, we've got some really big things to come on this, and just a special thanks to Harold for allowing me to come out and do this. He's a wonderful person, an amazing photographer. The man's a legend, and this was a life-changer experience, I think, for me, to go out and do this. It's a turning point for the show, obviously, and it was just amazing. And I'm really kind of humbled that I was allowed to do this. And interestingly enough, if you're in the Atlanta area, there is a show going on right now at Lumiere. Lumiere is a wonderful gallery I was able to visit when I was out there working on the Wynn Bullock stuff that we were doing with the High. And interestingly enough, Tony and Bob, who run Lumiere, have an amazing gallery, and they're two great guys, and I was really honored to have met them when I was out there. But they have a show going on right now that pairs Harold Feinstein's work up with Vivian Mayer, which is a very interesting show, and so if you're in Atlanta or near that area, go check it out. And I want to give just a couple thank yous to people who helped make this happen, because it was a really big deal, and it meant a lot to me. First up, Max Schenk, who is Harold's printer, as I mentioned, and we went over and did some footage of Max in the darkroom working on Harold's work, and that's another thing that's going to go in this. And Max is brilliant. He's one of those people that when you meet him within 5 minutes and you're talking about stuff and work, and you kind of feel like you've been friends for years. He's a really easy guy to get along with. I think he and I think a lot the same. And he was nice enough to, our payment for doing this is he went out and got a really nice batch of lobsters, and we had fresh lobster for dinner, and it was amazing. So Max is an awesome guy, and he's the guy who started all of this, and special shout out to him, and thanks again for reaching out and allowing me to be a part of this. It's amazing. Also, Harold's wife, Judith, I want to thank as well. Judith is a very sweet woman. She opened up their home. We stayed with them, opened up her stories, fed us, the whole thing. Judith is one of the more interesting people I've ever met. She, in addition to having a PhD and having this whole other life that she did before she became executor of Harold's, trust and estate, with the political activism work that she's done, we barely scratched the surface of asking her about that stuff, and she really is brilliant. She has managed to take on Harold's trust and estate and starting to put that in motion, and to learn that much about photography. I mean, she's absolutely brilliant, and she was wonderful to us, and I really appreciate that. And also a big thanks to Kathleen and Nicole for being around and helping us out with the interviews and everything else. This was absolutely fantastic, and I'm really excited because the whole thing I get to share with you guys who are viewing the show. And so I want to extend a special thanks to you all, because if you didn't watch this, we wouldn't be doing any of this. So it really does mean a lot to me. And anyway, all that to say, I will see you guys in the next video. We've got a lot more to come. Until then, this has been The Art of Photography, and thanks for watching. Later.